Well, first of all, it's great to meet you, and
Thank you.
I've been a big fan since the '80s when I heard Summer Song with Art Farmer and
Yeah.
wonderful. And I was wondering because I'm doing a thesis, writing a master's about jazz composition, and I'm comparing certain composers like Tom Harrell, like Bert Joris here in Belgium, like. And I'm interested in harmony and finding just the right color or the right harmony. And so I'm wondering about your process. If you come up with a melody, is it always that you have the melody and exactly the right harmony, or do you change a lot afterwards?
I mean, the only thing that I can say that's certain is that every tune, I do it a different way. You know, sometimes I start with just a title. Sometimes I start with a rhythm. Sometimes it's just melody. Sometimes I will stumble upon a progression that I like. Or sometimes I'll say, I want to write a tune in the spirit of whoever. So I've got about 40 or more pieces that I've dedicated to different musicians, people, whatever.
And do you decide beforehand, I'm going to think of this person,
Yeah,
and then whatever comes into...
Yeah, or I start to get into it and I say, oh, this kind of has a flavor of this, so let me think about, you know, John Taylor or Kenny Wheeler or whoever I'm thinking about, or Charlie Hayden or whoever I'm thinking about, and just... And it's not to imitate them, but it would be something that maybe they would enjoy playing, you know, that has something of their spirit in it.
So associations come to mind because of...
Yeah, and you know, I write a lot of tunes using a timer. I set to 45 minutes, and then I pick a note, a key, or a meter, and I turn on the timer, and I have to finish the tune in 45 minutes.
Deadlines, you like deadlines?
Deadlines, yeah. And it means that you just grab something and don't sit around waiting for, you know...
Inspiration.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's led to some of my better tunes, actually, a lot of them.
I've heard this been said by other people too. Interesting.
Yeah, it's just because you're writing a tune, I think a good jazz composition leaves room for the player. And I think there's a lot of young composers who are just, it's so dense and difficult that it's very hard to have room to be personal with it. You're just trying to get through it, you know.
Because there's so much information.
There's so much, and I think a really good jazz composition has 2 or 3 elements. Could be the bass motion, the melody, and the rhythm. Or it could be a certain kind of harmonic progression and a certain feel.
So you don't want to dictate
You don't
everything.
want to put 8 or 10 things into a tune, because then things don't stick. You know, the most important thing about a tune, a jazz composition, is that it's memorable.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's memorable, then you're doing your job. You know.
And do you revisit tunes? Do you look at it back later and say, well, maybe I will change that chord?
Well, yeah. So sometimes I'll do, or sometimes I'll get to a certain point in a tune. It's like the fork in the road. You know, if I use this harmony, it goes this way. And if I use this harmony, it goes that way. If I keep on going straight ahead, it will do that.
So you choose a direction after.
Yeah. And sometimes for the improvisation chord changes, I do a paraphrase of the tune. I don't do everything literally. Like there might be an odd bar or 2 bars in the head, but I might not necessarily put that in the solos, unless it's really super important part of the tune. So I'll make a paraphrase so that it got a better flow.
Flow to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, and the last question,
Sure, no
if
problem.
there's anything that sticks in your memory as like one of the best tips you ever got when you were upcoming and learning to write songs, and or any tip that really helped you? especially about harmony, about choosing the right color or the right.
Yeah, I think, in the end, when something feels right, it's right. It might not always be logical, but if it feels right and you keep coming back to it, then it's right. And I think if you get to a place in a tune and you're not quite happy, then keep the shape of the melody, but maybe change the pitches. Or keep the melody as it is, but change the harmony. Composing is the art of reconciling. You might have a great flow to something, and then there's a place that just bothers you.
It doesn't feel right.
And if it bothers you, then you have to fix it.
Yes. Yeah.
And sometimes that means you lose the tune, or you end up writing something that's maybe a little different.
So either change the harmony, either change the melody, whatever makes it work.
But you can kind of keep the same shape, but change the pitches, or maybe keep the same shape and change what's going on. I'm also very sensitive to bass movement, how the bass moves. So, for instance, a lot of inexperienced composers, they'll build something up and then they'll land on a very passive chord. It doesn't feel like, oh, I've arrived. It feels like, I think there needs to be kind of some payoff. There needs to be a real shape to the piece. And I've written, tons of things. If you give me an email address, I can send you my fake books, which just came out. We just did them in Sibelius. I only use a pencil, but they're very well copied in Sibelius.
Great.
It's got,
that.
60, 70, 80 tunes. And
Wonderful.
you can kind of see what the mechanics are. And more I'm writing on grand staff.
Shall I do that via Rob?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. More and more I'm writing on grand staff with all the voices leading, voice leading and everything.
Yeah, you can tell.
It's very very specific. There's some tunes that are just lead sheets, but less and less. I want to get.
I'm glad, because that's
right.
All the voices go to the right places.
Yeah. Well,
do you agree that that it's all about the balance between what you expect and what surprises you?
Yeah, sure. I think if you repeat something literally, the ear can get used to it. So maybe the next time it comes around, there should be a little surprise.
Just like in all these Cole Porter tunes where there's one note difference.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right, or one pivot chord that's different.
Yeah.
Or something about the form that's just a little more interesting.
Exactly. All these nuances when you revisit.
And I've written tunes, that might have a 21 bar A section, but it feels totally normal. You can't always go by the number of bars.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We
have to.
Okay.
We're just encroaching.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I guess you can. Thanks a lot for this.
Sure.
And,
no, send me.
I
We're
will.
just poaching in here.
Yeah.